Good morning, brothers and sisters. So, I hope you guys are having a good day or starting out your day blessed and prayed up and happy and full of joy. So, I stumbled across something yesterday or last night, and I don't believe that this was an accident because I've been shown some things and some dreams. Was it last summer? I can't remember. Like a year ago. And so in one of the dreams, I was looking at this city and I was like hovering up in the air and something had happened. Like I heard bells tolling or a bell tolling and I could see mice. I knew the mice were the people, but God was showing them the people like mice. And they were just running through the city. And it was just a bunch of chaos. And let me think here. Okay, so maybe if you guys could find that video, I think it has a picture of a mouse with, it's called Mouse in the Country or Country Mouse or something like that. No, it's called Mouse in London and Mouse in New York. Okay, so when I woke up from that dream, I went to find the first thing that was on my mind was country mouse, city mouse. Okay, I know this sounds weird, but so I went to do a video on my dream of the mice running through the city, and I typed in mouse in the city just to find some random pictures so I could do my video. And the first thing that came up was mouse in London, mouse in New York. Now, the reason why they were books that were written, like children's books. Now, the reason why I even paid attention to this is because I had visions already and dreams about New York and London. And I had awake visions of Paris or France and the Eiffel Tower falling and on fire. And so it was like this time period where the Lord was trying, showing me so I could share that these things are going to happen. Chaos is going to happen. There's going to be situations where it's not going to be good in these countries and in New York. And so I found those two. So those popped up to me, and I was like, huh, okay, I just had a dream about chaos happening with these mice running around, and it just wasn't good. And I took it to be kind of like a war scenario, like war was coming or something. And in the cluster of along with these dreams in that time period, I heard London Bridge is falling down. So like in a different dream. And so, okay, so let's fast forward to, let's see, night before, not last night, the night before. Excuse me. I had a dream that I was over in across the sea. I knew I had traveled across the sea. I was over in Europe. And I was having this very long conversation with somebody. It's like I could hear myself and watching myself have a conversation with somebody. And the whole conversation was in a British. I had a British accent. And the conversation lasted forever, and it was very serious, and I had this British accent. Now, this isn't the first time. I've had two other dreams where I'm speaking to somebody, and I'm like in Britain, and I have a British accent. And so I was thinking, well, what's going on with Britain? And I've had dreams about like Prince Harry and Christmas time, and I believe, which, I believe that the Lord was telling me, okay, pay attention to Britain, pay attention to the royal family, and just keep your eyes watching over there for this political markers, these things, because I believe that Britain is one of these kingdoms that it talks about in the Bible. And we look at the Lord, He shows us things when He wants us to know things and know that we are in the season. Things are about to happen. Situations are happening, and also we see prophecy being fulfilled. Little by little, and so when I heard London Bridge is falling down, I think I actually heard this song playing in a dream. This is what I found last night, you guys. Some of you might know this, but this is the first time it's ever been brought to my attention. Oh, I've had dreams about Charlotte and little George, and I don't think about these people, you guys. Like, I was watching something about, no, it's like the Lord's wanting me to pay attention, and that their children were dying and things like that. It was bad. They were drowning, and flooding was coming in, and war, and they were running around. Harry and yeah, it was all bad. So there's some things that I haven't shared about them that I've been shown, but this is what I found last night. I stumbled upon it, and when I think back, I'm like, really? Could this make something happen? I mean, with Brexit and everything going on right now, I think the straw and the camel's back would be something like this happening. And I was like blown away, you guys. I don't know. Pray about it. It's just kind of crazy. Okay, I'm going to play it. So,
26 years on the throne, Queen Elizabeth II is the longest reigning monarch in British history and has been a constant and calming force amidst the fast-paced changes her country has faced, making it even more inconceivable to think about what happens when she dies. Born in 1926, she was expected to live a relatively normal life. Well, normal at least by royal standards. As third in line to the throne, spending most of her early years out of the public eye. Everything changed in 1936, when her uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne in order to marry his true love, Wallis Simpson. You see, back then, marrying a divorcee, not to mention a two-time divorcee, was a huge faux pas to the Church of England. And just like that, Princess Elizabeth's father, King George VI, ascended to the throne, making her the next in line. And by 1952, following his death, her time arrived, and the rest is history. When the Queen ascended to the throne in 1952, she was a head of state in 7 countries. The size of the Commonwealth has since expanded to 53 countries, comprising nearly 1/3 of the world's population, and still includes 16 countries where the monarch is officially the head of state. This brings us to Operation London Bridge, the plan that no one wants to talk about, the plan for what happens when the Queen dies. No matter how secretive Buckingham Palace may be about the plans that surround her death, everyone knows exactly what to do, and the plans, which were uncovered by The Guardian, are complex, intricate, and timed out to the exact minute. Phase 1, D-Day. According to The Guardian, on the day the Queen dies, Edward Young, the Queen's private secretary, will be the first official to convey the news, setting Operation London Bridge into full gear. And at the exact moment in which she passes, Prince Charles will become king, and Camilla will become queen-ish. We'll explain that a bit later. On a secure line, Young will directly inform the British Prime Minister that London Bridge is down. and the news of her death will be distributed to various heads of state before it is disclosed to the general public. Once the Prime Minister is alerted, the Foreign Office's Global Response Center will alert the 15 governments where the Queen is still considered the head of state. From there, the 37 nations where she still serves as a political figurehead will also be informed. After this, the announcement of her death will be shared with both the UK's Press Association and the rest of the media outlets across the globe. Outside the palace, the news crews will be able to assemble in a predetermined area next to the Canada Gate. The same message will appear on the palace's website on a dark background. All the flags at the palace will be lowered and bells will toll. Both houses of Parliament are expected to gather within hours of her death. And on the evening of his mother's death, Charles will make his first address to the public as king. Now, all of this is assuming that she dies in London. If that's not the case, here's how things will play out.
I've had dreams about the main clock in New York City at that train station, and I've had dreams about Big Ben, the clock in which led me. Now, sometimes I know people talk about rabbit holes. Don't get caught down the rabbit holes, but it led me down this rabbit hole, and from my dreams about the Big Ben clock and how they just fixed it like not so many years ago, but it was so long ago, you guys, that I went and researched this stuff. But did you see that Operation London Bridge is falling? London Bridge is falling down. It means when the Queen dies, and all these chain of events will happen. And it's this whole plan that they have planned out when the Queen dies. And so I'm like, what?
Scenario 1. If the Queen dies abroad, the royal equivalent of Air Force One will fly a coffin to the location of her death, accompanied by the royal undertakers, and return the Queen's body to London. Scenario 2. If the Queen dies at her Sandringham estate in Norfolk, her body will return to London by car a few days after she passes. Scenario 3. The most intricate scenario of all is if the Queen passes while at the Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where she spends 3 months a year. Scottish rituals will play out before her body returns to London. Phase 2, D-Day +1. Flags will be raised the morning after her death, and at 11 a.m., Charles, the eldest male descendant of Queen Elizabeth, will be proclaimed king. At this point, Charles has waited longer than anyone else in history to assume the throne. Phase 3, D+1 through 12. Following the first 24 hours after her death, Great Britain will enter a 12-day mourning period, culminating with the Queen's funeral. King Charles will tour the country, stopping in Edinburgh, Belfast, and Cardiff, to appear at services to honor his mother. During this time, he will also meet with various elected leaders. D+1, Westminster Hall will be closed for cleaning. Elaborate and lavish funeral preparations will begin. D+4, the coffin will be moved to Westminster Hall during a procession that is expected to take place throughout London. When the coffin arrives, Big Ben will chime. Her body will then lie in state for 4 days. The Queen's orb, scepter, and the imperial crown will be placed on her coffin, and visitors will be allowed to pay their respects for 23 hours a day. D+9. In the early hours of the morning, the jewels will be cleaned before the funeral begins. Daily life will come to a halt in London. Businesses and stores will be closed. Big Ben will toll at 9 a.m. on the dot, and the bell's hammer will be covered with leather so that the bell rings in muffled tones throughout the remainder of the day. D+12. Her coffin will then be moved into Westminster Abbey, and the funeral will begin by 11 a.m. While the media will be allowed to film the services, the faces of the royals will not be shown during prayers. After the funeral, the same carriage that carried her father will return her body to her final resting place at Windsor Castle. It's an understatement to say the Queen's death will mean huge changes for the House of Windsor. As previously mentioned, Prince Charles will become king. So what happens to Camilla? Most royal experts believe that the Queen's death will technically make Camilla the Queen Consort, but any speculation about her title is just that. King Charles will ultimately make that official decision. The Queen's death will move Charles's eldest son, Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge, up in the line of succession to heir apparent. After that, William's 3 children will fill the line in their birth order. This includes his daughter. Thanks to a 2011 vote by the British Commonwealth, Princess Charlotte will be second in line, following her big brother George. So what does this mean for Prince Harry, Charles's youngest? Back in 2013, before the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge had children, Prince Harry was 3rd in line to the throne. Now, Prince Harry is 6th, followed by any children he and Meghan Markle may have. And last but not least, there's Brexit. The truth of the matter is that the monarch has little to do with the UK leaving the European Union. But considering all of the change that will come from a departure from the EU, the monarchy may be the last standing and the most stable institution left.
Yeah, I don't believe that. And for the first time in history, we have Meghan Markle, somebody from California, somebody from the United States, marrying into the royal family. She's about to have a baby, which I think there's something weird about that. And she was given her own coat of arms. Usually the father would get the coat of arms, but he didn't. It was Meghan. And it's very interesting, her coat of arms. What is on it? It looks like a dove being strangled. Yeah, so I just think like we should just keep our eye on this type of stuff. This has been a thing that I've talked about with Sherry many times. Because I've had dreams about the royal family. I have dreams about Big Ben and heard London Bridge is falling down and seeing chaos. Now am I saying, the Lord's saying that there's going to be, that day is going to be bombing and all that? No. But I believe that maybe we won't even be here, Maybe these are things that are going to happen during the tribulation, and that's what I am praying and hoping. But it is kind of strange how I stumbled upon that. London Bridge is falling down is the code word for the Queen has died. And they were saying that she's been the longest reigning monarch in history. And her son has been the longest waiting to go on the throne in history, which is kind of weird. And all those codes and, the bell rings at 9 o'clock and the bell rings at 11 o'clock. That's 9/11. That's kind of weird. But so, anyway, you guys, if you have something to add, feel free. And I just thought it was just really weird. Anyway, God bless you guys.